You're listening to Sarah Hagan Backstage, with interviews and insights from years inside the music industry. Join Sarah as she talks with masters of their crafts, finding out what makes them tick, both inside and outside of the music business.
Welcome to Sarah Hagan Backstage. My guest today, Liberty DeVitto, is best known for his time creating hit music and touring the world with Billy Joel. But he is also an author of multiple books, a studio musician with superstars such as Paul McCartney, Stevie Nicks, Carly Simon, and Karen Carpenter, just to name a few. And he plays with his bands, the Slim Kings and Lords of 52nd Street. Liberty tells some fantastic stories, and he gives us great insight into being one of the most legendary songwriters, drummers ever. So come along with me as I catch up with Liberty DeVitto. Liberty, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. Great to be here.
It is great to see you.
It's wonderful to see you too. What?
Oh, thank you. And we were just talking before I hit record about how we've actually never met in person before. So This is really, really a treat for me. And in this industry that we all think of as like this microcosm, right? It's nice to be in touch.
It's really nice to be in touch. Everybody thinks the business is huge and you don't know anybody or see anybody or but it's really small. I mean, really, really tiny. Somebody knows this person knows that person. You get introduced to that. And going to the NAMM show too, you meet a lot of people. People watch your videos. I met Larry Mullen at a play I went to on Broadway, and he was in the audience, and I introduced myself to him, and I said, "Hey, Larry, I'm Liberty DeVitto." And he pointed at me, and he said, "Oh, it's amazing. I just watched the video Hired Gun, and you were all over it."
Yes.
There's always that something that you've done or the other person has done that makes the introduction, which is great, because we're all watching each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's an interesting thing about the drumming community that maybe doesn't exist in other musician communities. There's this thing about us where we want to know what everyone else is doing, and we're happy for each other. There's camaraderie.
We're really happy for each other, and one of the things that keeps us connected, which you could think of it as a negative thing, but it's really not, is that we can't own anything. We can't.
Yes.
We create parts and stuff like that, but we can't own them.
Right.
A guitar player can come up with a great line in a song, and then all of a sudden somebody else uses the line. They take it for a rap song or something like that, and they have to pay the artist to get the drum part.
That is so true, and I never really thought about it like that, but that makes a ton of sense. Yes, there's no this is my part that I wrote and you can't use it, right?
Right. Now, once they do it, the perfect example is Bernard Purdy's Shuffle there, the Purdy Shuffle.
Yes.
Everybody did it, and had success with it too.
Absolutely.
Rosanna and The Fool in the Rain.
Yes. Yeah. And so there's like an atmosphere of sharing, I think, that maybe doesn't exist, right?
Right. And the great thing is that you get credited from the drummer when he does interviews if he used your part, or if you were the main guy that got him started, or if so many people, drummers have come up to me like at the NAMM show and said, like, you're the guy. You were the one. When I saw you play, you influenced me to play drums. It was great. And I go, "Oh, do you still play drums?" And they're like, "Yeah. I play with Matchbox 20, or I play with these big bands."
Yes. I can
crazy.
See that. Absolutely. I think about you and the way that you play, and we've had the conversation before. Our first conversation that we had, you were saying, I'm a songwriters drummer. I'm not a chops drummer, right? I think that was what you had said. And of course, you're a songwriters drummer. And I think about your drumming as so relatable to people. to other drummers, because you hear a part that you're doing, and it's kind of like when you hear Steve Gadd and when you hear Ringo, and you think, I want to do that. Like it's able to be grasped what you're doing, and it makes you want to play. Whereas sometimes you hear a drummer who's super chops and you're impressed by it, but it's not something that you want to sit down and redo, if you know what I'm saying.
I know exactly what you're saying. There's Sarah, there's a reason that I don't play double bass drum pedals. I don't play them. And there's two reasons why I don't. One is Parchment Farm by Cactus. Carmine Appice plays it. And the other is Hot for Teacher. Those are the two reasons why I don't. It's like, after you listen to that, it's like, well, what else am I going to do with this thing?
It's true. It's true.
If I play it, it's just because, everybody else is playing it,
Yes.
There's so many videos on YouTube of people playing drums that they're doing these licks that they are really good at, but they're like, you look at them and you go like, when would you ever use that? Or you're only going to be able to use it once, and then, so it gets crazy after a while, seeing so many,
Yes, and it is impressive, right? You're like, wow, that is incredible. I could never do that. I'm not sure why, when I would do that or when I would use that.
Right. And as far as jazz goes, I mean, I remember hearing Dave Brubeck. They did Take Five first, and Joe Murillo did a little bit of a solo in there. But then on the next record, he came out with a tune called Far More Drums, where he does a full-on 5/4 solo. And it was like one of those times when it was like, okay, I'll never do that. So let's move on to something else that I can do.
Yes, absolutely. And your parts in so many of the songs, and I'm thinking about just some of the Billy Joel songs, and we can go in deep on this, but I just think about your parts and how well they fit the music and how tasty they are. And one of the songs that sticks out to me is Get It Right the First Time. That was like that, your hi-hat work and all of that, and it just seems like such a fun song to play. Like, it has all the elements in it.
It is fun. That was a freaky song when he came in with that one, because it's kind of a departure from Billy Joel. It's not really a classic ballad or the long song with the message. It's just like, man, there's a girl over there. I got to get it right the first time.
Yeah.
And it was at the time too when we did the Stranger album. It's the first album we worked with Phil Ramone producing the record, and he at that time we were in A&R Studios, and all the hot studio guys were in there. Gadd was in there, and Richard T. and Cornell Dupree, all those guys who eventually, a lot of them started to play with us on the records.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. On that Stranger album, Richard T. actually plays the piano on Everybody Has a Dream, and then he plays on Tell Her About It.
That is super cool. I had no idea. So that sounds like it was a fun time, like in recording history.
Yeah, and it just shows you that I had my thing that could play with those studio guys too. Even though it wasn't like Gadd, I could do it with them.
Yes.
They felt comfortable playing with me, and I felt comfortable playing with them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And actually, let me dive into like the songwriting process too, because like we said, you're a songwriter's drummer, and you have the ability, which I think is something that is incredibly unique and valuable, to be able to fit parts to a songwriter who is very versatile. Like you just said, the songs we're talking about, the departure from the norm. And I mean, Billy Joel is an example of an artist who went everywhere with his music, right? Which is great, which is, I feel like, is what you need to do when you're a creative person, just explore all of the options. But you went there as well and like made it work in all those styles of music. So how did that work for you?
Well, like you say, he wrote in all different styles. A perfect example was when he wrote the song "Big Man on Mulberry Street." You know, it's kind of like a jazzy type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm playing in the verses, and I'm playing just a swing on the cymbal, and trying to do that jazzy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at me and he goes, "Would you stop doing that? You're not a jazz drummer. You're a rock drummer. Play like a rock drummer trying to play jazz.
Right.
Play like that. Don't try to play jazz. Play like you're a rock drummer trying to play jazz." And that became a style then in that song,
I
you
love
know?
that. Yeah, and it makes, if you think about that song, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. And,
Um,
and then I did some kicks, and
mhm.
then the horns actually played to the kicks that I did on the record rather than me playing to the horn kicks. So, it sounds like I'm a big band drummer.
Right, right. But that description is perfect. And did you get instruction like that often where it was I want this kind, like set the scene kind of thing, like in this way. Um
Well, in the studio, when we would go into the studio, Billy we'd go in the studio. The first day, he might have two songs finished, two songs to
mhm,
play us that, okay, I got two songs for the album of 11 tracks. But he had ideas of what he wanted to do. And he would run the ideas past us. And if we could come up with something that made the idea flow, he would go finish the song. And then the next day he'd come in with the song, you
right.
know. And then, but we would have to create the parts. Like
Mhm.
one of the songs I remember us going back and forth was the song "The Downeaster Alexa" that's on Stormfront album.
Mhm.
He said to me, he said, "The song's about my boat." Now I always got his lyrics while the other guys were writing our chords and all that kind of stuff. I got his lyrics because I wanted to know what he was talking about because
Yes.
that would dictate what I'm going to play.
Mhm.
So I've got the lyrics to Downeaster Alexa, and he goes, "Now, this song, it's about the boat, and and so I started to play like almost like a Jimmy Buffett type of thing, like
Yeah.
that kind of thing." He goes, "No, no, no, no. We're in the North Atlantic. The water is dark, and the
Yes.
waves are huge. You know." He goes,
Mhm.
I need you to do something like that. We're on a fishing boat." So I remember growing up on Long Island, and in the morning you would hear the boats leave to go out fishing, and they
Yes.
were diesel engines, and they would be putting out like pop, pop,
Mhm.
pop, 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 right? So that became the snare, pop, 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 right? The waves, they'd go over the waves, and bam, they come slamming down, right? So that became the tops, boom. So you had
Wow.
the slamming, boom, boom. So, and because it was a song, you had to have a little rhythm to it. So it was boom, boom. So that created that boat type of thing.
Yes. Like it's like almost a rocking too. Like I can hear that,
Yeah,
that is super cool. I love that.
I tried to get it so that people would throw up when they were on the boat.
They would get seasick listening to the song. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I can hear it though. That is so interesting. So yeah, you really are setting the mood for the song. And I love that you wanted to listen to the lyrics or hear what the lyrics were. Um,
always,
yeah,
always.
so you really understood what you were playing to.
He would
That makes
call
so
me.
much
He
sense.
would call me sometimes and say, "Look, I got this lyric. What do you think?" Like the song "Stormfront." He
Hmm.
called me about Stormfront, and he tells me the lyrics. He starts singing it to it. Safe at harbor, everything is easy. Uh, Off to starboard, daylight, whatever the lyric says. And he tells it's all about his boat.
Hmm.
And then he stops and he goes, "What do you think?" And I said, "I don't know how many people want to hear about your boat." I said, "If you make the second verse about a relationship that you're having with a woman,
Hmm.
they will think that the boat is just a symbol of the woman.
Yes.
Like he should stay home because there's a storm front coming."
Yes.
And the second verse then starts, I got a woman, my life should be easy. Most
Yeah.
men hunger for the life I lead.
Right. That's amazing. I love that. Yeah, and then it becomes relatable to 99% of the people that are listening to the song.
Well, that was the thing. It was like he's classically trained,
Mm-hmm.
and if you break down his songs, he's even done videos of this where he can play his songs, and they sound like classical songs. Like
Mm-hmm.
the longest time.
Mm-hmm.
Dun, 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 dun. It's like classical. Then he
Exactly.
says that I put the street element into it,
Mm-hmm.
to make it relatable to people, to the
Yes,
fans. I,
that makes
I I always say that us musicians are insane when we listen to music. I compare it to getting a pizza. You know, if you compare music the way you would compare a pizza, you would pick up the slice of pizza and you take a bite and you go like, oh, the sauce is good. The crust could be cooked a little more. The cheese is nice. It's a little stringy. You take it apart. Most people just eat pizza because they love pizza. We
yes.
listen to songs like we eat pizza. Like, that's a great track. Yeah, it's really good. The bass sucks on it though, but it could have been better. But yeah, it's
Yes.
like you got to think about how people listen.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I love and that's what you had in your head thinking about how people are going to relate to this music. And you brought that into the songwriting process, which is amazing. And I don't know if you do this. I know you have a young daughter, but I am always I listen to music with my kids and I'm always saying, did you hear that? Or listen for this, or this is coming up, They're just like, oh my goodness. Because you're listening, but you're analyzing at the same time, or you're, appreciating at the same time. So
Yeah, that's the way I learned playing drums was, I asked my father years later after career took off and we were doing well. I always loved music.
mm-hmm.
Not particularly the drums, but I always loved music. I had a transistor radio when I was a kid, put it under the pillow, used to listen to the top 10 all the time. So I asked
Mm-hmm.
my dad, I said, well, why did you buy me drums? And he said, because they didn't make Prozac when you were a kid. So it was so, it calmed me down, I guess. But so my mom said, when I got the drums, why don't you go take lessons? The
Mm-hmm.
first downfall for me was in the sixth grade school band. I couldn't do the buzz roll in the Star Spangled Banner, and the drummer said, "Put the sticks down, DeVitto, and you'll never do anything with the drums." So it's like,
Oh
it's discouraging.
no. Yeah.
So when I got this set of drums to bang on, my mom said, "Go take a lesson or two." So we went to a local music store. The guy was trying to teach me jazz, and I had just seen the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. And I
Yes.
pointed at the screen and I said, that's what I want to do. That right there. I want to
Yes.
tour the world and make records and have a great time with my friends. You know? So the guy,
Yes.
guy was teaching me jazz and it was like, I'm not into this. I want to do what that guy did, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I had to learn myself. And so when I was home trying to play to records, because I couldn't read music and I couldn't write
Mm-hmm.
music, I would get lost in the song. So I thought, I'll learn the lyrics and I'll sing along with the song. And then I realized, hey, you know what? The drummer does a drum fill when the singer stops singing. And the drummer also does a drum fill to take the band into a more exciting place, like the bridge or a chorus or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So that's kind of what I brought into the studio with Billy. It's like, when is it
Yeah.
my turn to do something? You
Right.
know, it's
Yes.
not all the time.
Yeah. And being okay with waiting for your time to do something, right?
Yeah.
Which is really interesting because you mentioned the Beatles, and I feel like that was such a strong point for Ringo, for what he did, was like waiting for his moment to create something memorable and significant in the music, and he did that so well.
Yeah,
But
I praise the guy. He's one of the most creative drummers. I listen to like the song "Getting Better" on Sgt. Pepper, and the part that he plays is just amazing. He could just be doing a regular shuffle. I used to be cruel, but he doesn't. He just straight forward the bass drum. It's just like boom, bah, psh, bah, psh. Just the stuff that he makes up makes the verse sit here, and then makes the chorus go here. It just lifts it, and then saves something for the bridge.
Yes. Yeah. It's amazing. And I mention this all the time on this podcast because it just is so relatable. But the Get Back documentary, I feel like I have watched it 3 times and would watch it like at any point again. I keep saying like I need to see that again because I keep seeing things I didn't see before and hearing things I didn't hear before. But just watching the creation of those hit songs is like nothing I've ever seen before.
Now, did you notice? Now I watched it too, and I have to tell you that I did cry at the end because the Beatles. When they first came to America, I was 13 years old. So by the time they broke up in '68, they broke up. I was 18 now. So that part of my life was the Beatles, right? So it was great to see Ringo sitting there when Paul is running through a song and just like basically keeping time, but listening to what Paul is doing. What's he saying? What's he doing? And then what amazed me too was before they actually got a track and before they started to really get down to work on their songs, they always went back to the beginning, played Little Richard, played, all those old songs that they played at the Cavern to get that whole excitement and that energy again of what rock and roll really is about. And then seeing them on the roof, when Ringo all of a sudden then became Ringo, it was like, oh my God,
Yes, absolutely. And for me, that wasn't, I was born in the 80s. So it was like, I knew the Beatles, I grew up with the Beatles, but I didn't understand what a short period of time that was and how it impacted music in the way that it did. And I, of course, like I love Ringo's drumming, I always have, but I didn't fully appreciate what he brought to the music as a whole. And I think that's important to understand.
It was amazing. I always say that, that people say like, do you think Ringo paved the road for you guys to do what you did? And I say, he didn't pave the road. What Ringo did was came in with a bulldozer, knocked the trees down, dug the road, then cemented it, then put the pavement on top of it.
Right.
Right. All that.
It is incredible. And as far as like the history of creating drummers, I'm not sure anyone created more drummers than Ringo did or pushed the drumming industry forward in the way that he did. And I'm thinking about Zildjian and Ludwig in particular, with their products being promoted and on back order, for years to come, and really kind of like making them household names. That's incredible to me.
Everybody wanted that oyster colored kit that he had.
Yep, absolutely. And they still make it, right? Like it still sells. I would want a drum set like that too.
Me too.
Right? We need that. Liberty, we got to get on that. No, but it is incredible. And I love that was how you kind of came to be the drummer that you were. And were there any other, what other kind of music were you listening to back then? You said that like the hits basically.
When I was growing, before I started with it, before the Beatles,
exactly.
I loved Dion, the song "The Wanderer." I mean, if you put that on now, play it loud on your stereo, the feel. The guy's name is Panama Francis, who played drums on it, and it just feels so good. That's when I used to relate to like Dion singing about the Wanderer, and he's got a girl here and he's got a girl there, and then he's got a girl tattooed on his chest and all this kind of stuff like that. Like, oh yeah, I want to be that. You know, Dion's so cool. So if I like Dion, then I must be cool too. You know,
Mhm.
so that was my first. I loved Gene Pitney. Uh, the Four Seasons, loved them. You know, that's Gary Chester, Hal Blaine, all those drummers. You know, they're
Yes.
playing music. They're playing to those songs and making them great. There's a song, "It's My Party" by Leslie Gore. The
Yeah.
drums are incredible on it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're
But
right.
nobody ever really listens to them,
Yes.
you know. But if you sit and listen to "It's My Party," you're gonna go like, What is he playing? It's so great, you know.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to listen to that again. I was definitely into lyrics as well as a kid, and I was that kid who would ask my parents, "Well, what does this mean? What is this song about?" And a lot of times I was way too young for like the the real story of like what
Yeah,
was
yeah.
going on in that song. Um, but it is interesting how it as drummers we pick those things out, where someone's just like, oh, this is a fun party song, and
Yeah.
but really like there's a lot going on there, and I love that those things affected your future in creating music, because those songs were really, you were creating in those songs, and it
Yes.
showed.
Yes, learning how to
Absolutely.
play those parts, learning the lyrics to the song and listening to the bass parts and stuff like that. You're not only learning the drums, you're learning music. A lot of drummers just learn drums
Yeah.
and they don't know anything about music. You know, there's a whole thing that goes down when you're recording. I mean, there's some great guys that. How about Larry Mullen? When you two, as soon as you hear, "Ba-da-da-da, ba, ba-da," you know
Mhm.
exactly what song it is.
Absolutely.
You
Yes.
know?
Yes. Yeah, the parts that make the music. Like when you hear a drum part and you can recognize, I mean, as drummers, I think we do that a lot. We could probably do that more than a lot of, if you have a guitar player and you're like, oh, what is this, the intro to, or whatever, it might be different. But it's so interesting, the drummers that create the parts that make the songs.
Yeah,
Um,
it's that opening thing. Back in the day, too, when they put on a 45, a record company or DJs, if they didn't hear anything in the first 10 seconds, they were done. They wouldn't play the record, you know? Like,
mhm,
I think about Brick House. It starts with that great, boom, dun, dun, dun. You know, it
mhm.
just
Yep.
sets it up, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing. And I want to hear a little bit too about, the travels, kind of the world travels, because you were all over the world in all of these tours. And one of the things that a friend of mine recently mentioned was that there's a story about when you played in Moscow, about maybe like you need to bring your instrument, like they didn't have instruments or something like that, and that you had left some symbols. I'm not sure if
Oh,
this is true, right? Is this a
I know what you're talking about. No,
okay?
we we brought all our stuff. We had
Hmm.
just finished a little run in England, and we used an English trucking company to bring all our gear. What we wanted to
Hmm.
show the Russian people was that when we play in a coliseum, what you're going to see tonight is exactly what you see if you came to Madison Square Garden. You
Hmm.
know, so we brought everything with us: sound, lights, everything. And it was, we just duplicated what you see it when you go to Boston Gardens or wherever you go see a concert.
And
And
this hadn't been done before, right? This was like
no, it was never done
this hadn't
before. I
been
mean,
done.
Elton John had gone, but just played piano with Ray Cooper playing percussion.
Hmm.
So this was a full-on production. So the thing about the equipment, the cymbals, was I went to see a band uh, at night in their rehearsal studio, rehearse this Russian band.
Hmm.
And in Russia at the time, you couldn't have something if everybody else couldn't have it. You know what I mean? Like that.
Right. It had to
That's why
be
they was
available to all.
right, right. So I went to see this guy, and he had these beat up drums, but his cymbals were horrible. They were just broken and just cheap cymbals. You know. So I said,
Hmm.
I'll tell you what. You come to the show, our last show, and I'll give you my cymbals, right? So the last show comes, we take all the cymbals off, and I give them to him, right? And he's like thrilled. He's trying to walk out of the arena, and the security stops him, and they say, "What do you have there?" And he takes his cymbals out, and they say, "You can't have these." And he says, "Liberty just gave them to me. He gave them to me, but you can't have them."
Oh.
And he says, "Well, he gave them to me because they're broken." They said, "What? Where is he broken?" He says, "See, there's a hole in the middle."
Oh.
And he got to keep them.
Wow. Oh my goodness. What a story. And
They was Zildjian. They was Zildjian.
Yes. Well, that's what that's, those were the symbols that were there, right? Like the only company at the time. What year was that? Do you remember? That was
86, I think.
Oh, wow.
86.
Yeah.
You were probably what, 2?
Started.
How old were you?
Yeah, I was 6 in 86.
86.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing though. I love that.
Yeah.
And we talked before, really briefly before I pressed record on this, but so traveling around the world and being gone a lot, you're home, COVID happens, you're home, it's like a whole different situation, and now you have like a different perspective on like fatherhood and being there because you have a young daughter.
Yeah, well, when my first 3 daughters were born, were little, it was make an album, go on the road, make an album, go on the road, make an album, go on the road. So I was away a lot, and I missed a lot. When my daughter Tori was playing violin, was taking lessons, and she's learning Twinkle, you have to hear it on the hotel phone because there was no cell phones then or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I wasn't there to see their first steps. I wasn't there to, things like that. But now having May, who's 6 now, when COVID hit, all the gigs were canceled. Everything was canceled. So we were home, which was a curse. But the good side of it was I was home with her all the time. And I saw her go from laying on her back to me turning and getting something out of a cabinet to turning around, and she's sitting up now by herself. I was like, I called my wife right away. I said, "You won't believe what I just saw. You won't believe." The first walks, the first, things like that. To the point now, yesterday, I was in the basement where I keep my drums, and she was with me. And I have this thing, it's called the one-man band. You bounce it on the floor, and the cymbals go, and you play cowbells and tambourines with a stick. She's now banging on the floor in time, and I'm playing on a set of drums, just playing boom, da, boom, da. And she's going, just
nice.
To watch this progress is amazing to me.
Yes. Yeah.
Living life. I'm living life now. Being in that time with Billy was being in a bubble. We could do no wrong. Every record was a smash. You get stuff all the time. People are giving you stuff. And so now it's like reality. This is reality. It's wonderful to do it. And especially at this age. I mean, being the age I am, it's a challenge because she's killing me by keeping me alive for this kid.
Right. Well, she's keeping you active, which is a good thing. I mean,
I get up, make her breakfast, take her to school, pick her up from school, hang out with the moms at the playground.
I love it. It's so great. It's so great. And it's nice to see you happy. And, I just I read you. Well, first of all, you wrote a book. Let's promote the book too, because it's a few years since you came out with this book, but it's called Liberty, Life, Billy, and the Pursuit of Happiness.
Yes.
And I'll put a link, of course, so that people can find it. But if anyone wants to read, it's really about your life and about touring and about the whole everything, right? So
I started writing the book with family history, just so my girls would know where their grandparents came from Italy and what my dad and his brothers did during the war, and things like that. But when me and Billy parted ways, I thought, okay, I'm going to write about Billy. Now, I must say, I could have thrown a lot of people under the bus, but
Sure.
I'm not that kind of person that would do that.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I'm going to look at the life, our musical career, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put on Billy's shoes and I'm going to look at it through that. Why does he do and why did he do what he did to certain people? Well, the
Mm-hmm.
guy's had a career for almost 60 years now. You
Yeah,
have to change. If you don't change, you're going to fall to the wayside. So
absolutely.
he was smart enough to be able to change. And sometimes you have to change personnel. And you don't mean to hurt them, but in order for you to move on, you have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something that has to be done. I mean, the Beatles broke up because they had to move on. They couldn't be in the same room with each other anymore or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
And they wanted to create in their heads, especially George. I mean, George had all
Yeah.
these songs that he wanted to record. That's why he put out a triple album,
Yes.
you
Of
know,
hits, right?
after
I
they
mean, he
broke
has
up.
his,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
amazing.
And Ringo was the first one to have a hit 45, a hit single after they broke up,
Mm-hmm.
because these guys were storing this up inside them because they
Yes.
were trapped in this box called the Beatles,
Yes.
which wasn't a bad, I'd like to
Wasn't a
have
bad
been,
box to be trapped in,
no.
right?
But for them, it must have been like torture after a while,
Right. They had more to give, right? They had more to do.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's why I love doing what I'm doing now. I mean, I play with the band, the Lords of 52nd Street. We do all the Billy songs. It's myself, Richie Canado, who played the sax on all those songs,
Mm-hmm.
and Russell Javers, who was in the band up until the Bridge album.
Yep.
And he went to the Soviet Union with us too. And so I do that. And then I have another band called the Slim Kings, which is with younger guys that, are into hip hop and all that kind of stuff. And the thing that connects us is I'm the old school guy. The thing that connects us is that they'll come into me with a R&B or hip hop song and they'll go, we want to do something like this with this beat. And I'll listen to it and I'll go like, they sampled Motown. That's a Motown. So
Yeah.
it's an old school beat that they're listening to, which they think
Mm-hmm.
is new because they don't know Motown, you
Right.
know. And so that makes a connection where we'll start the music. They come up with the younger ideas, and I'm basically bringing them back to what feels great,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So that's a lot of fun, and it helps me to keep current and create.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think about one of the things that you said about writing the book was that you started writing it 15 years before it was
Yeah,
released, right? So yeah, like in that time, you changed too, and your perspective changed, and you started to understand how other people felt, and you kind of softened some of it. I think that's incredibly important because you also, like we just talked about, so there's the Beatles box and Ringo and George
right.
Harrison like break out and have their own thing. I don't think you realize what you have to give or who you are as an individual until you are outside of something, till there's some time and space between you and an experience, right? And then you have this whole other, you have evolved, you have changed, your perspective has changed. So
Well,
I think that's amazing.
it's funny because I went to Sicily at one point to visit my relatives that still live there, and on the way home I said, you know what, I'm going to listen to every Billy Joel song that I played on with him. And after I was done, I was like, wow, that was good.
Yeah.
We were good.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And then, when you play with a band all the time, you never hear. Somebody asked me once, they go, does Billy Joel tell you how good you are? And I said, no, no, you only hear how you play when you do something wrong, when you make
Mm-hmm.
a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you hear about how your
Right.
playing is. But it wasn't until the book that when Billy wrote the forward, what he
Yes.
what he said, what I added to his music, which for me was amazing to read. I mean, when he sent me the email I like got teared up. It was like, oh my
Yeah,
God, you know,
I
yeah,
bet.
because you
I
don't
bet.
know, until somebody says something, it's weird.
Absolutely. And you need the positive too. I think about that with kids actually, right? So you find
Yes,
yourself sometimes correcting a lot, but then you have to really make an effort to be like, these are all the things you do so great, so they know. Um,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. Because you say one thing, like that teacher when he said to me, "Put the sticks down, DeVito. You'll never do anything with the
yeah.
drums." It was like, oh, well, I guess I'm, gosh, not going to do anything with the drums. I'm not good, you
Yes.
know.
Well, and a lot, I think that happens a lot of times with
Yeah.
creative situations where
Yep.
it takes a lot of encouragement because it's not easy to create and to create well and to feel good about it.
Yeah.
You need that encouragement, but I'm so, and like I said, I'm so glad to see you happy and really doing these things that are fulfilling because they are so great. And I'm going to link the band information too, so people can see you out playing. And I don't want to forget, you actually wrote a children's book too, which I
Yeah.
did not know about. And I'm like, I have to get this book. I have to get it now because I,
Yeah.
please tell me about the book.
It's it's called Love Santa Claus, and it talks about how his day starts and everything is, his pants are ripped. He's glad he travels at night so kids don't see him and stuff like that. But it also gets into the part, like the way I explain it to people is, if you write a book about Liberty DeVitto and his career, you have to, even if you don't like Billy Joel, you have to include him
Mhm.
in the book because that's a major 30-year part of Liberty DeVito's life, right?
Right.
So there's mentions of what happened to get Santa to get that job.
Mhm.
All the stuff that you don't necessarily believe in, and some people really believe in it, but that is the basis of how he got his job.
Right.
And
Yeah.
every night when he comes home, after the ride, on Christmas Eve, when he comes home on Christmas Day, he kneels down and says, "Thank you, just thank you for my job."
That's
I,
amazing.
I guess anybody could have got the gig.
Yeah.
No.
You have to have some aspect of magic though, right? So
You gotta have magic, and
yeah.
I think they started out with about 1,000 guys that had beards, and then they actually, okay, who's got a red suit, and that
Right,
cut it
right.
down to about 500 guys, and then who's got a sleigh, 10 guys,
Right?
then like, okay,
Flying
what do you,
reindeer, right?
right? Who's got reindeer? Oh, now we're down to 2 guys. Let's go with the fat one.
Right. Then it comes down to the look. I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, okay, and I will link information about that book as well because it looks great and fascinating. And I think with kids too, like the link between the magic and the fun of Christmas and the history and the religion behind it and all of that, kind of like putting that together and like a full understanding of what it actually is, I think is amazing.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, having the 6-year-old helps.
mhm.
You know, she came to see me play. I say last summer we played a gig up in Schenectady,
Mhm.
and so she and Anna came with me to the gig, and it was an outdoor gig, so it was great. It was a beautiful night. She was so amazed because she had never seen what I do.
Mhm.
She was amazed. Now, the downside was all she wanted to listen to for the next 2 months was Billy Joel songs.
Oh
In
my
the car,
gosh.
we had to play Billy Joel. And I was like, can't we play something
Oh.
else?
Yeah. That is so sweet though that she takes an interest in what you do and the history behind, what you've done too. Like, it's amazing.
After seeing the band, her big question was, why did Billy leave the band?
Oh my gosh. Like that, right? From the
Yeah,
it's just it shows you like how kids think, like the logic behind that, right?
yeah. Why did
And
Billy leave the band?
yeah. Oh my goodness. That's amazing. I and kids ask those questions and You
Yeah.
know, you think, yeah, the very simple, like to the heart of it. Why?
And now she's in different different kinds of music. Now she's into the Go-Go's. She loves the Go-Go's.
Wow.
And she also loves Erasure and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, my 10-year-old daughter, her favorite band is Queen.
Oh yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
it's just so interesting to me. And I was a classic rock fan as a kid as well. So it's just, but it's interesting. You just don't know. You know, I have a son into pop music, so he just
How old is
uh,
he? Is that,
he's
that's
7.
that's
Yeah,
a 7-year-old, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah. It's
they'll
amazing.
find what they love.
Yeah, absolutely. And I cannot let you go without mentioning too. So the studio work that you've done, and we've talked a lot about the time with Billy Joel, but you've done studio work with, I mean, top artists like Stevie Nicks and Karen Carpenter and Paul McCartney, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just incredible. So, I,
Yeah. That and $2.75 will get you on the
right.
subway.
But
Oh,
I
you played with Billy Joel? Come through the turnstile. Don't worry about the money. You just come on. No.
come on down. No, but I love the fact that you know, though musicians like that recognize your contribution to music, and it's fantastic.
You know, the thing with Paul McCartney was great, but one of the highlights was we did his 9/11 thing,
Hmm.
you know, at Madison Square Garden for the
Yes.
heroes, that thing. And I was walking with another band member and backstage, and Paul was walking towards us. And before he went in the door, he saw me and he looked at me and he said, "Hi, Liberty." And the guy, Paul went in the room, and the guy standing next to me goes, "Oh my God, he knows your name."
I love that. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Like we said, the band that really changed things for everybody. And yeah,
Yeah.
but of course he does, because
You,
he knows that musicians know.
you know what's great about getting older in the business is a lot of the younger guys now look up to you, and
Hmm.
you know they are interested in how you did what you did, and what the difference is between recording today as it was back then. You know,
Yes.
when you tell them that, oh, we all sat in there, the vocal that you hear Billy singing is what he sang when the whole band was playing. You
Yeah.
know, it's so different now. You can't with Pro Tools, you can take a little piece out and put it over here, take a piece out, put it over there. No, you had to play the whole song all the way through. No
Yeah.
mistakes, you
It's
know. And if there was
amazing.
mistakes, you left them in, you
Yeah,
know.
that, and they lived right in the
Yeah,
music.
yeah.
And so let's not forget to leave with a note of advice to those artists who are looking up to you. And what would you tell them if they, you know, give us some advice?
I always say, well, there's this great quote from Dion. He said he asked Buddy Holly once. He said, "What can I do to become successful?" Now this is Dion talking to Buddy Holly, asking Buddy Holly. Buddy Holly said, "I can't tell you what to do to become successful, but I can tell you don't necessarily do what other people tell you you should be doing, because you need to create your own, you know, thing. You need to create your own thing. There's so many people that I have a friend, and I won't tell you who it is. He's in a huge band. They're probably the biggest band now that sells out coliseums and arenas and everything now. He's in
Hmm.
that band. And when he started taking lessons, the guy came in and said, okay, we got a Steve Gadd track here. We're going to learn to play like Steve Gadd. Oh, you learn the part. And then he said, after he learned the part, he goes, that was good. Okay, we're going to learn another Steve Gadd song. And he told the teacher, he goes, wait a minute. I don't want to learn how to play like, I don't want to be Steve Gadd. I want to be me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so he went on and developed his own thing to create this band that, because of lack of knowledge, created their own thing
Mm-hmm.
and became this phenomenon, you know.
Amazing. Yeah, so do your
So
own thing, right? Just
Dom Famularo once told me when I said, you know, I put out a book, Music Minus One, just to Billy Joel, and they somebody else wrote out what I played because I can't tell you what I played, you know,
Mhm.
writing. And you know, Dom was nice, and we were talking about music books, and he said, you know, at the end of a music book, you turn it, and there's just a blank page back there.
Mhm.
He goes, that's when it's time for you to start creating your own stuff, right on that blank page. You know, because you have to
I love
create.
it.
You have to
Yes.
even Dom with his solos and stuff like that. You know, he tries to create things that nobody's doing yet. You know, and I could see drummers, they do some things, and I go, oh, you watch Dom's videos, don't you? You know.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
yeah, I mean, you have to you start to emulate people,
Mhm.
and then you create your own thing out of that.
Right, right. You can go so far with what other people have done and then you have to innovate, right?
Yeah, there already is somebody doing it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yep.
you go to a music teacher, if he has 50 students, there's going to be 50 guys that are playing the same thing, like the
Right.
music teacher, unless you start to, you know, find out what you do well and really make it great.
Mhm. Yep. I love that. That is great advice. Thank you so much, Liberty. I really, really appreciate you taking the time today and being here and sharing with us.
This is great. Well, I love
And
it. And I'm
yeah,
looking forward to the next thing.
absolutely. So you're holding a moose, and we'll tell everyone what you're doing there. So very soon, Liberty will be up at Drumeo filming with the guys up there and creating some content. And we've been joking the whole time about how it's Canada, so you need to see a moose, right?
Got to. It's in Vancouver, so I hope there's moose there. I don't know.
I know. Well, hopefully you'll get to see a moose.
All right.
But thank you so much, Liberty, and we'll see you soon.
Yep.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in today. Join us each Tuesday for new episodes of Sarah Hagan Backstage.